As far as the physical activity plan is focused on schools and youth, where they stand there?
We're going to keep them.
The youth end up
What are the ideas?
Sorry. You guys let me down like you did like
Yeah.
10, 12 minutes without telling a joke. I'm sorry. Probably longer than that. So what are some of the ideas around physical activity in schools and with children?
Where's the focus?
Where's the focus? Dominantly on providing quality, daily physical education and physical activity supported in the schools. There's also a large emphasis on things like joint use agreements. You'll see that we mentioned earlier. There's also some issues that cross between the education and the land use and transportation side, and that specifically being areas around school siting. So bottom line, and to give you an example of this, what typically happens is and I understand this, but I'm just pointing out from a physical activity and health perspective, what typically happens is school systems will buy the cheapest property possible to put a new school in. So that means going out in the middle of nowhere and putting a school. Then what happens is because the businesses and around that will realize that there's a lot of people driving to and from that school, and keep in mind you drive, you can't walk that distance. You'll end up with strip malls along those major corridors that create very non-walkable, non-walking supported environments. Then we'll end up with neighborhoods that will come in second after those little strip malls and other small businesses that are not well planned out. The neighborhoods may end up in close proximity as the bird flies, as crow flies, to the school, but you've got that highway going through there that you can't get across the street even if you're just half a mile from the school. So then kids can't walk to the school, and joint use is virtually not very practical because of all of the development around it. So issues like that cross into the land use issues as well as education issues. So I would say the dominant issues are around quality daily physical education in schools, providing physical activities beyond physical education in schools, joint use agreements and school siting would probably be the dominant themes. Does that come close to answering your question?
I'm coming from a perspective, I'm a huge fan of the Natural Learning Initiative, which focuses on breaking down the playground into something that is more creative atmosphere for a child, and getting children out of the classroom. It's kind of like the parking lot that you talked about earlier. You're tricking a person into getting that physical activity. Say we're going to go out into the woods today for our lesson, and you'll spend an hour walking around in the woods, and while they're learning, they're not realizing they're getting that physical activity. They're learning more than they actually know they are. And that activity would help, thinking they're working. Not looking at the perspective of
Completely agree. That would probably be at the tactic level within the education sector because it's a specific method of teaching children or getting them out. I think that conceptually it's well within the perspective of the folks who developed that education plan, the education sector. But I don't recall that specifically being mentioned, although I think it's right in line with it. Just a point of reference for you, your point is extremely accurate, and the single most important variable of children getting physical activity is getting outside. You want your kid to be active, do like my mom did. Well, you can't move. Bottom line, get them outside. Very, very important. And the Natural Learning Initiative is an awesome resource, and they're doing some great work to get people out. If you're not familiar with it, I recommend the book, Last Child Left in the Woods. I think that's exactly
where I got into this.
Last Child Left in the Woods talks about the term is coined nature deficit disorder. Great book. I recommend it. Other questions, other thoughts? Yes, sir.
Is attention being paid to the fact that we talked about this earlier, where sometimes people don't have ready access to facilities or space to be active, with the fact that, as you mentioned a minute ago, schools are quite close to large population areas. There's a school typically, surrounded by population. Breaking down those barriers between the public being able to access school property, school facilities, both outside and inside, and schools taking on a more open playing a more open public role in providing opportunities for someone to come in and do a program, or for people simply to come in and shoot hoops, after hours or whatever, or being able to access the track so they can walk during the evenings after work, because it seems like that certainly is an obstacle that we're facing.
It definitely is an obstacle. It is, at the same time, there are lots of opportunities. There are some issues that need to be worked out. Last legislative session, the North Carolina General Assembly passed a law that encouraged the state, here it gets into the implementation and weak teeth in this policy, but the General Assembly passed a law that encouraged the State Board of Education to also encourage to local education agencies joint use, community use, cooperative agreement types of issues. So there is now a little bit of political leverage that we can use to encourage that at a local level. What we need at this point is more role models, more examples. And so we're working on that. In fact, my office is beginning to do some work on generically thinking through how we can address some of these issues and providing some guidance to folks like you that can take it into a specific school or community setting.
A strange question.
It's probably interesting.
ADA is just coming out with new guidelines. And my frustration is ADA and guidelines create the easy way for people to do things. The elevator, the escalator, whatever, the parking handicap closer up and all of that. Well, it's not the ADA people that are using it, it's people who don't want to do physical activity that are using it. And how can we separate those two out? Does that make any sense?
Well, you're absolutely right. There's a balance that we have to strike between providing opportunities for providing necessary services for persons with disability, and creating an opportunity for laziness for those who don't need those services. And in every situation, you really need to look at context or content-specific design. You can plan to have both persons accommodated and their needs met. You can do that both with land use and transportation systems. You can do that in a work site. But it does take specific planning around those issues. So ADA doesn't say that they're the only option. ADA simply says we need to make accommodations for persons with disability. And a great resource that I would recommend for you is, I don't know the exact website, but it's the National Coalition for NCPAD. What's the National Center for Physical Activity for Disabilities, or something along that line. NCPAD is the acronym, NCPAD. But if you'll Google National Coalition for Promoting Physical Activity with Persons with Disabilities, I'm sure you'll get there. So it's a great resource for that. Sheree, I think we're probably over time, and we need to get into some specific groups. If you don't mind, I'll take this last question.
Okay. Last question I'll let you hold on to, because I keep cutting your head off every time I talk. I look down and I'm aiming at your shoes, so. Yeah, there you go. Do you have a communication system set up for us as this rolls out, so that when we have successes, we have failures, we have a way to not necessarily blog it, but exchange information with people around the country?
Good question, and thank you for asking that. In fact, you remind me of something that I neglected to say. There will be a communications plan and a communications system laid out that's being centrally coordinated by the National Coalition for Promoting Physical Activity, or NCPPA. Already online, there's an opportunity for you to sign up and to register to support the national plan. And as a result of signing up, you get newsletters and things of that nature from the national coordinating group to let you know of other opportunities. I believe that there are opportunities to even electronically network with others who are doing similar issues.
Well,
I
through
don't know
social
that
media
to
like
be-
Facebook, we, as a council, set up a Facebook page. And so when things like events and that kind of thing, things that we're involved in with the council we're planning, and, we connect it through Facebook. And so it's been a really nice avenue for communication and exchange.
Thank you for that question, for the prompt. I don't know a great deal of detail about the networking opportunities, but I would do recommend signing up for that group, for those newsletters, and exploring it from that angle. So I'll turn it back to Natalie and Sheree. Thank you for your time.